started that walk at 2 a.m. every day. I don't care where you are. From 2 a.m. to 5 a.m., you're out walking on the streets with a bag over your shoulder. Is not a good place to be. Late at night, I got off of Woodward and got where I had gotten a block away from the home, and my car pulled up and 3 guys jumped on me. Every single day, I started noticing this guy walking on the side of the road. And at first, I think the first time I noticed him was in the winter, and I just thought, man, that guy's got to be cold. And I thought, where is that guy going? He's walking somewhere. He's not just walking around in circles. And I just kind of thought about it quickly and just kept driving because I was going towards him. Probably more than a year went by, and I saw this guy walking to work, or walking every single day. I had no idea where he was going. I thought maybe he just, I don't know. He was never seemed like he was dressed for the occasion. In the summer, it seemed like he had too many clothes on. In the winter, it seemed like he didn't have enough clothes on, all winter long. So I would just see him all the time, and I would always just wonder, what's with that guy? He's going somewhere, because I see him today and then I see him tomorrow, so he didn't get somewhere and then go somewhere from there. He's doing the same thing every day. I kind of put 2 and 2 together as I was driving. And one day I was walking through the front door of my office building on Big Beaver, and he was coming around the corner of the building, walking right towards the front entrance of the building as well. And I looked at him and I said, "Hey, do you work around here?" And he said, "Yeah, I work in Rochester Hills." And I said, "But yeah, I always see you when you're walking on the road. I always see you on Crooks Road, walking up Crooks Road." And he's like, "Yeah, I work in Rochester Hills." I said, "Where do you work?" He said, "By M59 in Crooks." And I said, "Well, where are you coming from?" And he said, "Somerset Mall," which was right next door to my office building. And I thought, wow, long walk, but I guess, yeah, that's right. I see you on that road all the time. So it's a long, 7+ miles to be walking every day. And I said, yeah, I see. I said, yeah, hey, next time I see you, I'll give you a ride home, or I'll give you a ride to work. And he's like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever. And then he kept walking, and I went into my office building, and I didn't really think much of it. And then one day I was at a stop sign, or a stoplight, and it was winter, and he was standing on top of a snowbank by the corner, waiting to cross the street. And I looked at him, and I'm like, oh man. I told the guy, give him a ride, and it's freezing out there. I'm like, okay. So I pull over and I roll down my passenger window, and I had to look up at him because he was up on the curb and up on a snowbank. And I was like, hey, I told you I'd give you a ride. And he said, he looks down at me, he's like kind of cautious. I was like, yeah, I met you in front of my office building. I told you I'd give you a ride to work. He's like, oh, okay. And he kind of hobbles down and opens up the door and gets in. And I just started talking to him, and I started asking him about himself. Pretty interesting person. The first ride that I gave him that day, he told me that he lived with 3 other men in his house and a woman, and that he was the only person in his house that worked. And I thought, yeah, you work, because I see you going to work every day. But then he said something that really struck me, that was really probably the reason that I picked him up ever again, is he said, I can't imagine people who don't work. I don't get it. That's exactly what he said. I don't get it. And I said to myself, I like this guy. And so I didn't ask his name, didn't ask him anything else. He just, I dropped him off at work and I thought, that guy's a pretty motivated guy. I said, I don't really understand people that don't work either, but if I had to walk his walk, I think I'd be one of them, the people not working. He was on that Crooks Road stretch for a solid 2.5 hours, because that's how long it takes him to walk about 7 miles. So if I went to work any time in that 2.5 hour stretch, I would see him. I would either see him at the beginning of his walk, or I'd see him towards the end of his walk. And so I started picking him up and giving him a ride to work every day. And I probably gave him, 20 plus rides, 30 rides maybe, before I didn't even know his name. I didn't care what his name. Who cares what his name is? I happen to be friends with somebody who I told this story to, and she would get on the speakerphone in the car. We would talk to him together. And when I first told her the story, she said, "What's his name?" And I said, "It's really funny. I don't even know what his name is." And she's like, "How can you not know his name?" I said, "We're guys. We sit in the car. We talk about sports and stuff and the weather, and we don't. Who cares what his name is?" And so she's like, "You got to know his name." So she said, "Call me with him in the car tomorrow." This was the very first time. And so we called. The first thing out of her mouth was, "What's your name?" And he's like, "It's James." He would tell me about his parents, tell me about his father's military background, about growing up. And one of the things that was the most fascinating to me was as he told me more about where he lives. And remember, I had still not been there, and the living conditions he was in. I started thinking, what made you rise above this? And not just rising above this, but what makes you every single day rise above this and decide that you're going to walk through the snow, through the rain, through the heat, through whatever it is, to get to work every single day?
It goes back to that. It goes back to the loyalty thing. It goes back to the loyalty. I sincerely believed in loyalty. That came from of course, that part came from my father.
Because he had told me that at the time, I believe he was making $10 an hour, or it may have been, I think it was $10 an hour at the time, maybe even $9.75, something like that. I think it was $9.75. So some very low wage, but yet he was getting up every morning. He was spending most of his day walking, and he was going to this job where, to me, he could have found a job a little closer to home. But turns out that he had gotten the job, and the bus would take him to the job when the business was located in Troy, near the Madison Heights border, and the bus stop was very close, so he could walk to work. Then his employer moved, but he wanted to stay loyal to his employer, so he decided he was going to move with it, and there was no bus service to the new location, but he didn't let that stop him. He just decided, well, I'll just walk. It all became, to me, when I would pick him up, it was not about me doing him a favor. It was about him doing me a favor, because I was motivated by this. Because every day I would think, I used to go to work and I would get a bad parking spot, and I'd get mad that I had to walk so far to the door. And then you pick him up, and he never complained, never had anything negative to say, never said, "Oh, it's too cold out there for me today," or anything like that. He was always grateful for the ride, but it was just like, this is what I do. So it was an interesting perspective to see that every day, so that when I went to work, I would think, I think I have it a little better than this guy does. So that was motivational to me, and inspirational. young person that he's always referred to as a Wayne State University student, but he was a Wayne State University student, saw the article and decided to start a GoFundMe page, and that brought in obviously a lot of donations, not so much the first day, but as the story got bigger and bigger, brought in more and more donations. I didn't do anything, but yet some good came of the whole situation for him, which is great, and he deserves it. But I just think it's really cool that one of the most fun thing that happened was probably when we gave him the car. But what he wanted was a Ford Taurus, and so I actually had to call someplace, and I got a hold of David Fisher from Suburban Ford, biggest car dealer in Michigan. And he was really, really, really nice and helpful and understanding. And I said, hey, you don't have to give this guy a car. He's got a lot of offers elsewhere, but he wants a Ford Taurus. And I thought I would call you and just see. He's like, hang on a second, I'll call you back. He called me back like 2 minutes later, and he's like, I'm sending you some pictures, some descriptions of cars like from the website. And he sent me some, and I said, well, anything will work. And he said, no, we're not going to do that, Blake. I said, what do you mean? I go, he wants a Ford Taurus, big deal, Ford Taurus is a Ford Taurus. He goes, nope, I'm not doing that. And I said, why not? And he said, because we're getting him exactly what he wants. And I said, all right. He goes, find out. He goes, I don't care how you do it. So Evan, Lady, and I had to coax him into this, hypothetically, if you got a car, what color would you like? What would you like the interior to be? And it's like, so we kind of asked him like that and got it out of him.
True is a nonprofit advocacy organization. We've been working since 1999 to try to push for more and better public transportation throughout the greater Detroit area. We were founded by a number of individuals who were fed up by how poor the public transit was in this area and the fact that leaders didn't seem to be doing much about it.
I asked him, how do you get home at night? Like, what time do you get home? And he told me.
What I do is I wake up at 6. It's a timing thing. Everything's a time thing. I wake up at 6. I leave at 8. Get to the bus stop at 8:30. I go out there and I don't get off until 9 o'clock. And then I walk from there to my job from 9 to 11:30 or 12, depending on how fast or slow I go on, but that's another story. And the scarier part was when I leave work, at 10 at the time. I go back to the Somerset Mall, and it'll be about 1 o'clock. And when I get back to Detroit, it will be about 1:45. But by the time the buses will leave 8 Mile and Fairgrounds at the time, so. I would get off at about quarter. I would get off at 1:45. If I had to, I walk to from 8 Mile to Kenilworth, and it would be 4 o'clock in the morning back then. So I had to work. So when I get home at 4, I got to wake up back at 6 and do it again. Imagine doing that 5 days a week.
And I said, wait a minute. So you do all this walking back and forth to Somerset, 7+ miles, probably 8 miles to Somerset, and then you go work, and then you walk back to Somerset, 8 miles, then you take a bus, and then you have to walk. How far is that? Well, that's about 5 miles. And I said, what way do you take? He said, straight down Woodward. And I thought to myself, at 2 o'clock in the morning, every single day, you walk down Woodward, regardless of the weather, for 5 miles. And I thought, how's this guy still alive? Because that's not, not the nicest neighborhood, and it's not the nicest time of the day to be walking through, that neighborhood. And to do it day in and day out every single day was just amazing to me.
I first heard about James Robertson and his challenging journey to work each day when Bill Leitner of the Free Press called me and told me he was told me about Mr. Robertson and the story he was working on, and asked me to comment of how common is this. I talked with him a little bit about the fact that there are so many people who are struggling and the limitations of our transit system.
The Regional Transit Authority of Southeast Michigan, RTA, was established to fix that. Its goal is to coordinate and invest in regional public transportation services to connect Macomb, Oakland, Washtenaw, and Wayne counties, and to connect over 2,600 square miles, 4 million residents, and 1.9 million existing jobs. The Gratiot BRT line will run from Mount Clemens to Detroit, connecting Macomb and Wayne County. The Woodward line will run from Pontiac to downtown Detroit, with stops throughout southern Oakland County, Highland Park, New Center, Midtown, and other locations connecting Oakland and Wayne counties. The Michigan line will provide the first rapid connection to Detroit Metro Airport and connect the airport to downtown Detroit. The Washtenaw line will connect downtown Ann Arbor with downtown Ypsilanti. The master plan also includes a regional rail line between Ann Arbor and Detroit with stops in Ypsilanti, Wayne, and Dearborn. There must be reliable connections that link community to community and people with jobs, healthcare, retail, education, and entertainment. The RTA Master Plan includes a network of cross-county connectors that are faster and move seamlessly between counties. They will run along Grand River, 8 Mile, Jefferson, 12 Mile, Van Dyke, and other major roadways. Commuter express lines will be established to increase service at peak times of the day, allowing for ease of travel to and from work. Commuter express lines will run along M59, I-75, and from Ann Arbor to Canton. To make rapid, reliable regional transit a reality, voters in Southeast Michigan will be asked to consider a 1.2 mil property tax on November 8, 2016. This equals about $95 per year, or just under $8 per month for the average home. Working together, we can create a rapid, reliable regional transit system to connect Oakland, Macomb, Wayne, and Washtenaw counties.
Across our region, 92% of jobs can't be reached on transit within an hour commute. If people are willing to vote yes for regional transit November 8th, we can finally change that and ensure people can connect to jobs.
So we signed up with a baseball team here in Detroit. The Royals, where it's a 55 and over baseball team that he is playing on now, and I think having the time of his life because it's what he always wanted to do, and I think he probably, it's one of those things people want to do, he's probably wanted to do it for the last 15 or 20 years, and he's finally doing it, so it's a big deal to him.
I want you to vote yes on the upcoming transportation proposal on November the 8th.